Before diving into this extraordinary tale about a humble woman with a black belt and a hidden past that will move you deeply, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss stories that truly resonate. It started with what seemed like a harmless challenge. A black belt instructor jokingly asked a quiet, unassuming woman to spar. What followed left the entire gym speechless. It's often said that the quietest people hold the most powerful stories, and Tyler Garrison was about to learn this firsthand. He'd never forget the day he learned that appearances could be the most misleading thing of all. Rebecca Thompson entered Master Kim's martial arts academy like she had many times before. The familiar squeak of her old sneakers echoed on the polished floor as she pushed through the heavy doors. The atmosphere was thick with the unmistakable blend of sweat and focus. She scanned the room, looking for her 16-year-old daughter, Chloe. "Mom's here," Chloe called from across the blue practice mats, where she was working through forms with a group of fellow teens. Rebecca offered a soft smile and tucked a strand of graying hair behind her ear. At 38, she had embraced her appearance: no makeup, a baggy gray t-shirt, and loose sweatpants. Life had taught her that real value wasn't skinny. "Take your time, sweetheart," she called, settling into the bench near the observation area. She pulled out her phone, intending to catch up on emails as she waited. Sharp commands echoed across the training floor as Tyler Garrison, the head instructor, barked orders at his advanced students. His black belt was neatly tied around a spotless, white uniform, and his voice carried the cocky confidence of someone who had rarely been challenged. "Higher kicks, Jenkins. Even your grandma could do better than that," he snapped at a struggling teen. A few nervous chuckles followed. The students respected him, but it was a respect tinged with unease. Rebecca watched in silence, observing his movements. His form was technically solid, his motions precise. Still, something about his attitude unsettled her. She'd seen men like him before, capable fighters, yet lacking the humility that true mastery demands. "Sensei Tyler's no joke," one mother whispered to another. "But he's gotten my son his brown belt faster than we expected. He commands attention, that's for sure," the other replied, glancing toward him as he corrected a student's stance with an unnecessarily rough shove. Roughly 20 minutes later, Chloe jogged over, cheeks flushed from exertion. "Ready to go, Mom? I just need to grab my water bottle." "Of course, honey. How was practice?" Rebecca asked. "Great. Sensei Tyler showed us some new combos. He said I might be ready to test for my green belt next month." Rebecca beamed with pride. Chloe had battled self-doubt before she started martial arts. Watching her grow stronger, both inside and out, made every class and every payment worthwhile as they packed up. Tyler's booming voice suddenly rang out over the dojo. "Before we wrap up, who wants to see something a little different tonight?" The room went quiet. Everyone turned to face him. Rebecca felt a strange knot form in her stomach. Tyler scanned the room slowly, then his eyes landed on her. A sly grin curled across his face. "You know what? Let's have a little fun. A demonstration, if you will, on why ordinary people shouldn't mess with trained martial artists." Gasps and puzzled looks spread across the room. "This definitely wasn't part of the usual program, Mom. Let's just go," Chloe whispered, tugging urgently on Rebecca's arm. But Tyler wasn't done. He strutted across the mats with exaggerated swagger, his heavy steps echoing across the Newton space. Parents glanced at each other, unsure whether this was staged or spiraling into something else. Rebecca rose slowly, her instincts firing on high alert. Whatever was coming, she could feel it wouldn't end well for someone. Tyler stopped directly in front of her, his 6-foot frame looming over her modest 5 feet 5 inches height. The entire dojo had gone still. Even the teenagers who had been giggling before now sat frozen in uneasy silence. "Ma'am," Tyler said loudly, ensuring the audience could hear, "I don't believe we've met. You're Chloe's mom, right?" "That's right," Rebecca replied, her tone calm and unwavering despite the tension thickening in the room. "I was wondering," Tyler continued with a faux charming tone, "have you ever been curious about martial arts?" Rebecca felt Chloe squeeze her hand tightly, her palm clammy with worry. "Not especially," she replied, keeping her voice composed. "Oh, come on now," Tyler pressed, clearly performing for the onlookers. "You've watched those action flicks and thought, hey, I could do that, right?" A few awkward laughs bubbled up in the room, though most parents looked away. "Actually, I haven't," Rebecca said, her voice steady. "We really should be heading out. Chloe has homework." But Tyler wasn't ready to give up his spotlight. "Have a better idea," he said. "How about a quick demonstration? A light spar just for fun. Let's show everyone the difference between trained skill and, well, wishful thinking." Chloe looked horrified. "Sensei Tyler, my mom doesn't." "It's okay," Rebecca interrupted gently, her jaw tightening just slightly. Tyler clapped his hands. "Perfect. Don't worry, Mrs. Thompson, I'll take it easy. Wouldn't want to bruise someone who's never thrown a punch." His arrogance was palpable. Around the room, students shifted nervously. Some appeared embarrassed, others seemed disturbingly entertained. "This really isn't necessary," Rebecca said. "Oh, but it is," Tyler insisted. "People these days think they're tough because of what they see on TV. They need to understand the real difference between combat training and suburban yoga. The insult hung heavy in the air. Rebecca felt something awaken inside her. Not rage, but a cold, sharp awareness she hadn't felt in years. What's the worst that could happen? Tyler continued. A takedown or two. Consider it a free lesson. Rebecca glanced at Chloe, whose eyes pleaded with her to walk away. Then she looked at Tyler, so smug, so sure of himself, and made a decision. One condition, she said quietly. Tyler raised a brow. What's that? When this is over, you apologize to them. She gestured toward the watching students. Tyler let out a sharp, mocking laugh. You'll be the one apologizing when you hit the floor. Several students looked away in discomfort, but Rebecca simply nodded and began to remove her jacket, revealing surprisingly toned, defined arms. Mom, Chloe whispered in alarm. You don't have to do this. Rebecca gently squeezed her daughter's hand. Sometimes, sweetheart, bullies need to learn that strength doesn't always look how they expect. As she stepped onto the mat, the way she moved changed completely. The relaxed gait of a tired mom faded into deliberate, graceful steps, each one controlled and fluid. This was not a woman unfamiliar with combat. This was someone who belonged in the ring. Meanwhile, Tyler adjusted his belt and addressed the audience. Everyone, gather around. Let's make this educational. What he and everyone else in the dojo didn't know was that Rebecca Thompson had once been known as Rebecca Chen, a 3-time world champion in mixed martial arts. For 6 years, she dominated multiple weight classes, earning the nickname Silent Storm. For her serene demeanor and devastating skill, she didn't leave the sport because she lost. She left because of loss. Her younger brother, also a fighter, had died in a car crash while rushing to see one of her matches. She had blamed herself, thinking that if she hadn't been competing, he wouldn't have been on that road. The guilt had driven her away. She changed her last name to her mother's, moved across the country, and buried her old life. She vowed never to fight again. For 13 years, Rebecca kept that vow. She poured herself into motherhood, building a quiet, anonymous life as a freelance graphic designer. But as she stood on the mat now, watching Tyler grandstand and mock the very discipline he claimed to teach, something awakened inside her. Not for fame or pride, but for respect. You ready, Mrs. Thompson? Tyler called out, bouncing on his toes with exaggerated bravado. Rebecca took her place in the center of the mat, her breathing deep and steady. The crowd grew silent, sensing something different, though they couldn't quite name it. Tyler grinned and addressed the room. This is why we train. You can't fake experience. The irony didn't escape Rebecca. She had faced Olympians and world champions. She had trained with legends. Tyler, with all his pride, was about to learn the hard way what experience really meant. Any last words? He asked, flashing a smug smile. Rebecca looked him directly in the eyes. What Tyler saw there made him instinctively take half a step back. It wasn't fear. It wasn't uncertainty. It was the calm gaze of someone who had nothing to prove but everything under control. Yes, she said. The strongest people are often the ones who don't need to show their strength. Tyler faltered for just a moment before recovering his arrogant smirk. All right then, he scoffed. Let's begin. He launched into an over-the-top warm-up, tossing high kicks and showy punches to impress the crowd. Some parents looked uneasy. The other students watched with anticipation and confusion. Rebecca, in contrast, stood completely still. Her breathing was measured. Her posture shifted subtly, centered, balanced, perfectly grounded. Mom, please, Chloe whispered, again from the sideline. You don't need to prove anything. Rebecca turned to her and smiled gently. This isn't about proving, it's about teaching. Tyler finished his dramatic warm-up and faced her. Hope you've stretched, Mrs. Thompson. This might sting a bit. Parents exchanged worried looks. One leaned toward another, whispering, should we stop this? How he's the instructor, came the whispered reply, and she agreed. Rebecca ignored the murmurs. She closed her eyes, briefly, and everything she had once known came rushing back: the muscle memory, the reflexes, the instincts. Her body remembered it all. When she opened her eyes again, she was no longer a tired mother standing on the mat. She was a fighter. Tyler saw the subtle change and raised an eyebrow. Ah, been to a few self-defense classes, huh? Something like that, Rebecca responded calmly. Well, that won't save you today, he began, circling her slowly, talking to his students like it was a lecture. See, kids, real martial arts takes years to master. This isn't something you pick up watching YouTube. You're absolutely right, Rebecca said, her tone carrying a strange weight that made a few listeners shift in their seats. Tyler paused. Exactly. So maybe no. She cut him off gently but firmly. You wanted to give a lesson on real martial arts. Let's begin. That moment shifted the room. The certainty in her voice unnerved everyone. Even Tyler seemed thrown off but pressed forward out of pride. Fine, he said, settling into what he assumed was a strong stance. Let's get this over with. He lunged forward with a fast right cross. It was sharp, practiced, powerful. It missed entirely. Rebecca didn't block it. She didn't counter, she simply wasn't there. Her body shifted with flawless timing, letting the punch pass inches from where her head had just been. To most of the audience, it looked like magic. She had barely moved. Tyler stumbled slightly, confused. That punch should have landed lucky, he muttered, resetting. He came at her again, jab cross. Hook all clean, all perfectly executed, all missed. Rebecca flowed around every strike like water slipping around stone. Her movement was minimal, efficient, almost invisible. Her balance never wavered. She didn't even look like she was trying. All around the room, the mood had shifted. Excitement was now awe. Even the youngest students sensed they were witnessing something incredible. Tyler's face reddened. Sweat dripped from his forehead. His breathing quickened. Still, nothing landed. Stand still, he growled, hurling another barrage of attacks. Rebecca remained calm. But now, with every dodge, she edged slightly closer. Tyler hadn't noticed it yet, but she was closing the distance. He was tiring himself out, and she was letting him. "What's she doing?" whispered one of the teenage students. "She's wearing him out," replied another, watching with wide eyes. Tyler threw a wild hook. Rebecca ducked under it, and for the first time, she touched him. Just a soft tap on his ribs, nothing forceful. But it said everything. She could have struck. She didn't. Tyler spun around, panting, bewildered. "Fight back," he shouted. "I am," she said softly. "I'm just choosing how." Her words hung in the air. She wasn't refusing to fight. She was controlling the entire match without lifting a finger in aggression. It wasn't a battle. It was a lesson. Desperate now, Tyler lunged low, attempting a takedown. It was his last chance. A risky move, but he was banking on size and surprise. It was the worst decision he could have made. As Tyler drove forward, Rebecca stepped into the motion. Her hands met the back of his neck and shoulder. With a graceful, controlled motion, she guided him, using his momentum against him, and gently redirected his path into the floor. The entire gym echoed with the sound of Tyler crashing face first into the mat. Gasps filled the air. No one moved. Tyler lay there for a second, stunned, not just by the fall, but by how easily he'd been handled. He'd come at her full force. She hadn't resisted. She had simply understood him better than he understood himself. He finally pushed himself up, blinking at her in disbelief. "How did you do that?" Rebecca reached down to help him up. 13 years of practice before I ever stepped into this dojo. Tyler ignored her hand and stood on his own, clearly shaken. The students stared at him, no longer seeing an unbeatable instructor but a man who had just learned a lesson. "That's impossible," Tyler muttered, still panting. You're just a mom, a regular person." Rebecca looked at him not with judgment, but with calm clarity. "No," she replied gently. "I'm someone who chose to leave fighting behind to focus on what mattered most, raising my daughter. But that doesn't mean I forgot everything I learned." The words landed like a quiet explosion. Around the dojo, eyes widened. It wasn't just that she had bested Tyler. It was the ease, the restraint, the complete control with which she had done it. Then Chloe stepped forward, her voice clear and trembling with emotion. "My mom is Rebecca Chen," she said. "She's a 3-time world champion. She retired when I was a little kid." Silence. You could hear a pin drop. Some of the older students began pulling out their phones, quickly typing her name. As they read articles and watched clips from old fights, their expressions shifted, first disbelief, then awe. A few whispered, "It's really her. She was a legend." Silence stormed. Tyler's face cycled through emotions: confusion, disbelief, then unmistakable shame. He looked around at the students who once hung on his every word and now saw someone they truly respected standing quietly in front of them. He started, struggling to find his words. "I owe you an apology," he finally said, his voice low. "And I owe them one too." He turned to his students, who watched in stunned silence. "This wasn't teaching," Tyler admitted. "It was arrogance. I let my pride turn a lesson into a performance. And I disrespected the very principles I'm supposed to stand for. What Mrs. Thompson showed us today wasn't just skill. It was real martial arts. Not the moves, but the mindset." Rebecca nodded once. "The strongest thing you can do is admit when you're wrong. Your students won't lose respect for you because of that. They'll gain it." Tyler looked at her for a long moment, then gave a small, genuine bow, the first true gesture of humility anyone had seen from him. The room remained quiet, everyone processing what had just unfolded. Slowly, the tension began to dissolve, replaced with something deeper. Understanding. Rebecca walked back to Chloe and wrapped an arm around her shoulders. Her daughter looked up at her with eyes full of admiration, not just for what she had done but for who she had always been. "Why didn't you ever tell me?" Chloe asked in a quiet voice. Rebecca smiled. "Because I wanted you to find your strength first, not through my story but through your own." The lesson lingered long after the mats were cleared. That day, everyone in Master Kim's dojo learned something unexpected. Not about fighting but about power. Real power. The kind that doesn't need to shout, the kind that stands quietly, the kind that walks away from glory and returns only when it matters. And perhaps most importantly, they learned that sometimes the most unassuming people carry the deepest stories. What about you? Have you ever misjudged someone based on how they looked? Has anyone ever surprised you with strength you didn't expect? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe for more powerful, heartwarming, and eye-opening stories that remind us behind every face is a journey, and sometimes the strongest people are the ones who choose silence until the moment they're needed most. Hit the bell so you never miss a story that could change your day.